was perhaps the most downtrodden American worker, toiling away every day, standing all day next to a scorching hot boiler, yet his paycheck was just a few measly bills. The workers just wanted to voice a few complaints, but the cruel factory owner called in riot police. He wanted to use batons and rubber bullets to teach those who dared to protest a lesson. This man, Jason, was just about to help an injured worker up when he himself took a rubber bullet. Jason was knocked to the ground, but the police continued to swing their batons at him. Unable to take it anymore, Jason finally fought back. The more he fought, the more his blood boiled, and like a madman, he roared at the police. After a day of chaotic exhaustion, Jason, utterly spent, returned to his small home. Don't let Jason's miserable job fool you. He actually had a very happy 3-person family. His youthful, beautiful wife not only gave him an adorable daughter, but also gently showered him with kisses every day to soothe his tired body after work. Just seeing his adorable daughter each day was Jason's happiest moment. However, that very night, his happy home was struck by tragedy. Jason had just finished showering and went downstairs to the kitchen when he found his wife lying on the floor. As he stepped forward to check on her, he was immediately attacked by a masked assailant. When Jason woke up again, he found his wife dead next to him. The police, who had just arrived, all pointed their guns at him, seemingly having already deemed him his wife's killer, because in Jason's hand he was still holding a bloody, sharp knife. Just like that, Jason was framed as a murderer and taken to a prison located on a central island. A grim-faced guard processed him. After being drenched with bone-chilling cold water and subjected to a beating with rubber truncheons, Jason officially became an inmate in this prison. 3 crude, filthy men stared at the newcomer with hungry eyes. The guard hadn't gone far when he heard violent noises echoing from the cell. He thought Jason was getting a proper welcome, so he chuckled gleefully and turned back to watch the show. To his surprise, he saw Jason standing casually by the door, hands in his pockets. As for the 3 other men, they were sprawled on the floor. They must have just slipped. The next day, as the new face, Jason entered the mess hall and immediately became the center of attention. But it seemed everyone already knew who he was. It turned out that before he was a worker, Jason had been an incredibly famous professional champion race car driver. In Ruvalter, due to marriage and having a child, he gradually disappeared from the racing scene. And now, unexpectedly, he was back in prison. Just as everyone was buzzing with gossip, a few bald thugs surrounded Jason, who was quietly eating his meal. They were part of the Brotherhood gang, seemingly intent on causing trouble, and one bald guy spat a thick wad of flag onto Jason's food tray. The Brotherhood's boss, a bearded man, also stepped up behind Jason. They wanted to give this newcomer a proper introduction, but they were about to learn they had proper introduction. Bearded man was beaten until blood gushed from his mouth, and he glared at Jason with seething resentment. No one expected this man to be so strong. Because he had fought on his very first day, Jason was brought before the warden. The warden was a seasoned blonde woman. She was cold and ruthless. If Jason uttered a single word she didn't like, her subordinates would immediately hit him with a club. The warden had taken notice of Jason's past as a racer and his incredibly impressive track record. He wanted him to participate in the race on Terminal Island, the death race. It turned out that after 2025, the US economy collapsed due to the tariff war, and the crime rate skyrocketed along with unemployment. Consequently, prisons were successively privatized, and the Terminal Island prison, to make money, organized and live-streamed the death race. The more brutal the race, the higher the viewership. In previous seasons, the most popular racer was an inmate who always wore a mask, named Frankenstein. But in the 2 previous races, his opponent, Drozadin, shot him with a cannon, blowing him up. The result, in subsequent matches, without him, viewership plummeted uncontrollably. Therefore, the warden wanted Jason to wear the mask and continue playing the role of Frankenstein to participate in the race, thereby bringing back the audience. And to get Jason to agree, she offered him an extremely attractive reward. If he won 5 races, he could leave prison and regain his freedom. Thinking of his little daughter, Jason, of course, couldn't resist this temptation. So he agreed. Jason was taken by the warden to the workshop and handed over to the technical team that had previously served Frankenstein. In Rafdui Street Plotter, the head of this pit crew was a highly experienced mechanic, nicknamed Coach. Coach was a man of many experiences. It was said he even used to be a hotel manager. The members of Coach's repair team were quite decent, and they began introducing Jason to their war machine. This car was a modified Ford Mustang 80, equipped with a V8 engine, boasting a maximum power of 850 horsepower and peak torque of 700 lb. Beyond the car's standard configurations, Coach's team had also added a few unique touches of their own. The car was armored with 0.75-inch thick bulletproof steel all around, and the rear featured an additional 6-inch thick solid steel shield, which Coach called the Tombstone. The front of the car was fitted with 2 30mm machine guns, and inside there were napalm bombs, smoke bombs, and various other defensive devices. One could truly call this a death machine. Jason noticed a button inside the car with a Resident Evil symbol. He didn't know what it was for, but it looked really cool. It turned out to be just a cigarette lighter. Immediately after, Coach began introducing Jason to the other racers and their teams. First up, 14K, a Chinese-American, a smart gangster with a business degree. He had eliminated 4 people in the death race. Next was Grim the Reaper, a psychotic madman and a loyal admirer of the female warden. He had killed 12 people in races. Then there was Pachenko of the Brotherhood, the man Jason had already encountered. And finally Joe. He was currently a top racer, strong enough to rival Frankenstein, and was the very person who defeated Frankenstein in the previous race. It was also the strongest opponent Jason would face in the upcoming races. Just then, several new inmates were brought into the prison. Each of them wore a very special device on their wrist. Coach told him it was a GPS tracking bracelet, a prison device used to prevent high-risk inmates from escaping. But as soon as Jason saw the bracelet, he was plunged into a memory. He remembered the night his wife was murdered. The mysterious intruder who broke into his home also wore that exact bracelet on their wrist. The more Jason thought about it, the more chills ran down his spine. Could it be that his wife's murder and his being thrown into prison to participate in the race were all not just coincidences? He felt he absolutely had to uncover the truth. Finally, race day arrived. Jason donned Frankenstein's mask and under everyone's gaze stepped into his car. Just then, a bus pulled up and several hot, curvaceous girls stepped out. It turned out they were assigned as navigators to each racer, all chosen from the women's prison. Jason's navigator was breathtakingly beautiful, alluring to an explosive degree. This girl named Case had already heard from the warden about the secret of Jason replacing Frankenstein. At this point, Coach helped pull down the reflective visor and Jason took off his mask. Only then did Case get a clear look at the new racer's face, and she was immediately struck. "I never expected this bald newcomer to be so handsome. What are you looking at? You're much better looking than the last corpse." The live broadcast of the death race officially began. Because Frankenstein had returned for this race, the number of online viewers began to skyrocket non-stop. It even broke the previous record, which made the female warden incredibly excited. It seemed the idea of Jason taking over the role was truly effective. The race officially began. As all the signal lights turned on, all the war machines immediately roared and sped off. Since no weapons were allowed in the first lap, speed was the only thing everyone competed for. Joe always considered Frankenstein a thorn in his side, so of course he couldn't let Jason off easily. His car was a modified large Dodge Ram pickup with a sharp obstacle-clearing attachment on the front. It was equipped with 4 Browning M1919 machine guns. Both sides of the car also had Vulcan machine guns, and a GP7 grenade launcher was mounted on the roof. Its firepower literally filled the screen. With its massive body, it continuously rammed Jason's war machine. Jason couldn't go head-to-head with him, only speeding into smaller roads to avoid the sharp attacks, activating his sword and shield power-ups. Just then, the track's weapon system activated, and racers scrambled to grab the sword and shield buttons. Whoever claimed a button could unlock offensive weapons. There was also a special skull button. Once activated, a deadly spike strip would immediately pop up from the ground, impaling cars and drivers alike, a truly chilling sight. Reaper Grim had just finished off one opponent, then brazenly blocked Joe's path. Joe, enraged, immediately switched his target to him. After securing the weapon button, Joe unleashed a hail of machine gun fire. After secure, Reaper Grim, meanwhile, had acquired the defense button, and his car's tail immediately sprayed a large amount of oil. Joe couldn't dodge in time and skidded directly on the main road, spinning sharply in another direction. Grim, having just won a round, was feeling bloodthirsty. After snatching the weapon button, he continued to target 14K ahead and opened fire. To his surprise, 14K ahead and opened fire. To his surprise, 14K's car unleashed countless iron spikes from its rear, immediately blowing out Grim's tires. Another car behind him then slammed into his, and his entire vehicle spun wildly. 14K, seeing that wasn't enough, waited for the right moment and followed up with a rocket. Grim's car exploded mid-air and then slammed hard onto the road. Grim, who had been arrogant just moments before, miserably crawled out of his war machine. His flesh was torn, but he still tried to act tough. Immediately after, Joe sped over to send him to hell. Because the race was so violent and bloody, viewership had reached a staggering 46 million. The female warden, watching from above, revealed a satisfied smile. The race continued. Jason drove to the weapon button, only to find his machine gun wouldn't fire. Case, both alluring and daring, climbed right out of the car, using one hand to forcefully bang on the jammed machine gun. The girl in the war machine next to them also climbed out, lifted her machine gun, and wildly fired directly at them. Jason immediately hid behind another car to avoid the hail of bullets. To make matters worse, Joe had also caught up, continuously firing at their war machine. Finally, Case fixed the jammed machine gun. She quickly pulled herself back into the car, and Jason and she exchanged smiles. It seemed this girl was far from ordinary. She was a truly synchronized partner. To counter Joe's relentless attack, Jason sped up to grab the defensive button, but they discovered that all the oil-slick defensive smoke and napalm bombs in the car were unusable, and this wasn't the first or second time this had happened with their car. Just then, another racer saw Jason's car was having trouble. After was slammed into Joe, pushing him aside, and then attacked Jason's war machine directly, wanting to gobble up this juicy prey. At this point, Jason's rear armor shield, the tombstone, was almost completely shot to pieces. It couldn't hold up much longer. "Get on my lap." "What? Get on my lap now!" Case thought Jason was trying to take advantage of her before they died. But Jason wasn't trying to exploit her. He directly deployed the napalm bomb hidden under the passenger seat. What the hell was that? Merry Christmas. He's dead. Nice one. Just like that, Jason eliminated another opponent. Even though several racers had died, the female warden was extremely satisfied. Jason's performance was indeed no less impressive than the previous Frankenstein. Jason sped up, chasing a war machine. The driver was Pachenko of the Brotherhood. His hand movements reminded Jason of the mysterious masked assailant from that night, who had made the exact same gesture. Joe immediately rammed Jason's car hard, sending it flying to the side of the road, causing him to lose this race, and who ultimately finished in 6th place. Jason drove the battered war machine back to the workshop. Coach, with a few of his crew, thoroughly inspected the damaged car. They found that the car's oil slick supply was still full, but why couldn't it be used during the race? At this moment, Jason realized why he had been framed and thrown into prison. He knew the female warden was very likely behind everything. She had orchestrated for Pachenko to kill his wife and pin the blame on him, all just to force him to impersonate Frankenstein and participate in the race. After connecting all the dots, Jason angrily refused to participate in the next race. But the female warden was not flustered. She simply pulled out a recent photo of his daughter. It turned out Jason's daughter had been adopted by someone else, and the warden knew the girl's address. Jason furiously snatched the photo of his daughter. Given the current circumstances, Jason could only swallow his anger and continue to compete. You need a monster. Well, now you've got one. But he absolutely had to find a way to escape this place to find his daughter, and he would never forgive his wife's killer. That night, while everyone was resting, Jason sneaked alone to Pachenko's workshop. To his surprise, the Brotherhood members had been prepared for a long time, just waiting for him to walk right into their trap. Jason was chained tightly by the neck. Pachenko repeatedly beat him, seeking revenge for the previous beating in the mess hall. He wanted to beat Jason to death. But suddenly, a sharp pain shot through his back. It turned out the chubby guy from Coach's team had secretly followed, wanting to help Jason. As Pachenko shifted his attention to the chubby guy, Jason grabbed a piece of metal from the ground and plunged it hard into the thigh of the man next to him. No longer restrained, he could finally unleash his full strength. Pachenko was no match for him. In just a few moves, he was knocked to the ground. Seeing that Jason was about to beat him to death, Pachenko finally relented, volunteering the truth. Unmonted frowning Lee tapes off. It was indeed the female warden who had ordered him to kill Jason's wife and frame Jason for it. After getting a definitive answer, Jason, of course, wouldn't spare this culprit. Just as he was about to erupt, Jason, furious and ready to kill his enemy, was hit by a guard's taser, stopping his act of revenge. The second race began. The moment the signal lights lit up, all the cars shot forward, but Jason's remained completely still. Only after all the other cars had sped far ahead did Jason slowly start his engine. Even his coach couldn't predict what he was up to this time. Jason's real target for this stunt was none other than the beautiful Case, who was sitting right beside him. He drove his car into a deserted workshop, his hand resting on the passenger ejector seat lever, forcing Case to confess the truth. He demanded to know if she was involved in the previous race, where all their defensive equipment mysteriously failed. But seeing Jason's hand tighten more and more on that ejector lever, she finally had no choice but to admit it. Everything was indeed connected to her, and it was the female warden who had forced her to do it. The warden's goal was to make the most popular star racer lose, ensuring he'd remain imprisoned and continue racing to make money for them. Once he had his answer, Jason started driving like a madman. He immediately hit the nitrous boost, turning his war machine into a rocket, shooting forward at incredible speed. In the blink of an eye, he caught up with the pack. He shot a fierce glare at the female warden, vowing silently that he would never forgive this venomous woman. Jason slammed straight into Gunzo, the impact sending Gunzo's large pickup truck spinning off to the side of the road. But his true target this time wasn't Gunzo, it was Pachenko, the man who murdered his wife. He slammed his war machine against Pachenko's, the two vehicles grinding furiously together, sparks flying everywhere. Jason ignored Case's urgent shouts to grab the shield button. Instead, he lunged for the weapon button, his mind set on killing Guap. But the coach found this incredibly strange. Jason's car was already in first place. There were no enemies left in front of him. So who was he planning to shoot? The answer came almost immediately. Pachenko, who had also just secured the weapon button, began firing wildly at Jason from behind. But Jason, instead of evading, made a dramatic wide turn, spinning his car completely around. He aimed his car directly at Pachenko's and simultaneously hit his machine gun fire button. He was actually reversing his car while attacking Pachenko, the two vehicles facing off, firing directly at each other. Immediately after, Jason secured the defense button. and he instantly spun his car around again, deploying the smoke dispenser. A thick cloud of black smoke instantly engulfed Pachenko's car, completely blinding him. After Pachenko's car was sent flipping, Jason brought his own vehicle to a halt, letting the other racers behind him speed past. He quietly waited for Pachenko to crawl out of his wrecked car, then slowly reversed back. Jason put on his Frankenstein mask, ignoring Case's desperate pleas, and stepped out of his vehicle and walked up behind Pachenko, and right in front of the female warden's horrified eyes, personally snapped his neck. He had deliberately committed murder right in front of her, and there was nothing she could do to stop him. Enraged by Jason's blatant defiance, the female warden decided to unleash her ultimate ace in the hole, a destructive behemoth, to put these racers in their place. Green North entered the fray. A gigantic, heavily modified truck was unleashed, its frame bristling with heavy cannons and grenade launchers. The North opened fire with everything it had. The entire racetrack was instantly engulfed in flames. Violent explosions ripped through everywhere, turning several war machines into scattered debris. Meanwhile, Green North latched onto Jason's war car, relentlessly pursuing him, all while spewing flames at other racers on either side. 14K's war car happened to pull up right beside it, and the spikes on Green North's wheels immediately ripped straight through his vehicle. 14K's beautiful navigator was crushed to a pulp. Moments later, the rear of Green North shot out an iron chain with a hook, securely latching onto 14K's war car as its rear cannon slowly swiveled to target its helpless prey. 14K had no time to escape. He could only accept his grim fate. Now, only Jason's and Gunzo's cars remained operational on the track. Jason had his chubby crew member contact Gunzo. He wanted to team up with Joe to take down this destructive machine. The two cars struggled to survive Green North's onslaught, then accelerated, pulling ahead of it. The two cars sped side by side, then simultaneously hit their ram buttons. Green North had no time to react, crashing straight into the trap and instantly being obliterated, shattering into countless pieces. The destructive machine that the female warden had secretly created was completely dismantled by their combined efforts. She was so furious she wanted to scream obscenities. At this point, she began to deeply regret bringing Jason into the death race, as events were rapidly spiraling beyond her control. She decided that in the final race she absolutely had to kill this defiant racer. After all, Frankenstein was just a mask. She could always find a new racer to replace him. Before the final race, she assembled all the prisoners. But when the workshop was empty, she ordered a guard to secretly plant a remote-controlled bomb underneath Jason's war machine. Standing on a high platform, the female warden swore defiantly before everyone that the winner of the final race would be granted their freedom. But Jason knew perfectly well that in all these years, no one had ever truly left this prison. This woman was a deceiver through and through. At that moment, the coach showed Jason a video clip. It was the exact moment Reaper Green's car was sucked away. Jason, ever the strategist, instantly grasped the coach's intention. This video was the key to his escape from prison. Soon after, Jason went alone to Gunzo's workshop. He had something important to discuss with him. On the night of the final death race showdown, only Jason and Gunzo remained for the ultimate battle, where they would finally determine the victor. To combat Jason, Gunzo's war machine was now equipped with a whole battery of Russian Type 7 missiles. Pierced through any armor, boasting an effective range of up to 1,000 yards. Truly a weapon fit for a battlefield god. Jason climbed into his war machine with Case, as always, serving as his navigator. Only this time she had already confessed to Jason that the female warden wanted her to secretly sabotage him, a clear sign that Case had truly sided with Jason. The final race, featuring only 2 war machines, began. The 2 cars sped off parallel to each other, racing at breakneck speed, and this time the guards deliberately played dirty. Racing at all the weapon buttons Jason could normally activate were disabled, leaving only Gunzo with access to them. Sure enough, as soon as the race began, Gunzo launched a ferocious attack. Not only were Jason and Case unable to access any weapon buttons, but even the defense buttons were locked for them. The female warden was dead set on making Jason lose this race. Gunzo, meanwhile, happily exploited every advantage, relentlessly hounding Jason. Realizing this couldn't continue, Jason decisively detached his 6-inch thick tombstone armor plate. But Gunzo reacted too quickly. Just as he swerved, his car's front end expertly dodged the impact of the steel plate. No one could stop Gunzo. Jason could only continue to drive like a maniac. With great difficulty, he spotted a defense button suddenly light up ahead. Just as Jason was about to grab it, a cannon shell from behind blasted the defense button to smithereens. It was Gunzo's clever trick. He clearly felt it was time to end this. He immediately launched several missiles at Jason. They barely grazed Jason's war machine before slamming into the opposing steel wall, creating a massive explosion's war machine. But Jason didn't slow down at all. He drove straight into the inferno, then burst right through the prison's perimeter wall. Immediately after, Gunzo followed suit, speeding out. It turned out this was the plan they had secretly discussed the previous night, deliberately blowing up the wall to escape. The two cars immediately sped onto the bridge leading to the other side. Witnessing this, the female warden went absolutely ballistic. She couldn't believe she'd been outsmarted, and worse, this entire escape was being broadcast live to tens of millions of people. She frantically ordered all her subordinates to mobilize and capture them. Seeing the two cars make their escape, the female warden suddenly remembered her ultimate trump card. She pulled out the bomb remote control, intending to blow up that disobedient racer. "Let's see who gets the last laugh," she sneered. "Someone's about to go ballistic now. No one touches my car," she declared. But it turned out the bomb had been secretly swapped by the coach's team much earlier. The female warden was so enraged she felt like her lungs would burst. Prison helicopters were scrambled, and a swarm of police cars relentlessly pursued the two escapees. Case worried they might not make it, but Jason had already planned ahead. He told her to pull the lever in front. It turned out Jason had long ago asked the coach to install 5 kilograms of gasoline bombs, specifically to create a roadblock for their pursuers. The two cars smashed through the bridge checkpoint, finally reaching solid ground. Jason and Joe said their goodbyes, the two cars splitting off in opposite directions to make their final escape. The female warden frantically ordered all helicopters to track Jason's car. She was determined to capture Jason in the Frankenstein mask, and this was also the moment Jason and Case had to part ways. Jason somersaulted out of the war machine, while Case continued to accelerate and drive away. The helicopters in the sky completely missed this maneuver, foolishly chasing the speeding car. Case led the helicopters to an open field, finally bringing the vehicle to a stop there. Watching Warden watch through the helicopter camera, seeing the person wearing the Frankenstein mask climb onto the roof of the war machine. The soldiers immediately swarmed the figure. Meanwhile, Jason and Joe had already climbed onto a moving train car, successfully escaping that hellish place. Both were overjoyed, though they still regretted not being able to personally deal with the female warden. Elsewhere, the female warden, believing she had finally captured Jason, allowed a satisfied smile to spread across her face. She thought this lucrative race could continue indefinitely. What's more, viewership for this broadcast had exploded, and she had just raked in an enormous sum of money. Just then, a guard brought her a congratulatory gift box that had just arrived. But when she opened it, inside was a bomb. It turned out to be a gift from the coach. "I love this game to death," read the note. 6 months later, in a small Mexican town, Jason and Joe opened a car repair shop. They specialized in modifying cars for speed enthusiasts, proudly calling themselves friends like family. Just then, a classic 1970s Chevrolet pulled up in front of them, and out stepped a captivating, alluring woman, their friend, Case. Jason then carried out his beloved daughter. Finally, he could give his precious little one a life of true happiness.